And so Crystal attended last year, and she suggested the title or the theme for this. Actually, it's our entire symposium this year. It's the theme for this, the whole symposium, but also for this session. So Crystal is the ecologist for the Arcata field office of the Bureau of Land Management, and she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Rangeland Resource Science with an emphasis in wildland soil science at Humboldt State University, now Cal Poly Humboldt. Her work includes coastal grassland and pollinator habitat restoration within Humboldt and Mendocino counties. We're really excited to have you give your talk today, Crystal. Thanks.
Good morning. So my name is Crystal Kunz, and I am the ecologist at the Arcata BLM field office. And as Carrie stated, my presentation is going to be on building collaborations and partnerships across the North Coast. So as you can see, I'll use this pointer. Right there. So on the northwestern section of the state, there is, that's where the Arcata BLM field office is. And we manage roughly 212,000 acres spanning Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino counties. And as you can see, the yellow are the BLM lands, and we have a ton of scattered tracts, which means we have a lot of different types of vegetation and communities that we have to understand and manage. And we do all of that through partnerships. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the three main ways that I have worked to foster relationships and partnerships in the community. First, is an intergovernmental agreement, or an IAA, and that is among different agencies within the Department of Interior. And so it's Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Indian Affairs, National Park Service, Bureau of Reclamation, and a number of other different agencies that I didn't list here. And most commonly is the financial assistance agreements. And so those are outside of the Department of Interior. And that is a competitive community-based grant opportunity. And I will just plug right now. So the BLM California Plant Conservation Restoration Program, it's called a NOFO, so our Notice of Funding Opportunity, which allows people within the community to apply for grants through BLM, is now open and on the streets. And I have resources for that, and come talk to me if you have any questions later. And so those are eligible, or nonprofits, 501c3 nonprofits, public and state institutions of higher education, so universities, Native American tribal governments, state governments, and a list of other different eligible entities are able to receive financial assistance agreements. And then finally, what I've used is good neighbor authority agreements as well. And those are state, county, tribal governments, and I think special districts as well. So the intergovernmental agreements and good neighbor authority agreements, those are non-competitive. Those are within organization or the agencies. And that is a different pathway of how BLM can be involved in crafting those relationships compared to financial assistance agreements. And I'll go into that a little bit too. So the programs that I manage are the botany, so plant conservation and restoration, the grazing program, and the invasive species management programs for my field office. And that is a pretty well-rounded way that I can approach through different partnerships supporting the work in the community, and well-rounded for supporting native plants for the BLM field office. So there's generally a few steps that I will engage in when cultivating new partnerships. And the first is identifying the needs that support those programs that I just mentioned. And then I will seek the funding either internally through BLM or outside through different grant opportunities, like through Wildlife Conservation Board or other opportunities as they arise throughout the year. And then once I've secured funding, that is when I will engage the community members, like nonprofits or the school, as I sought out Carrie Byrne years ago to cultivate one of our relationships for a financial assistance agreement. And then we collaborate on different project ideas. So this really is more of a relationship and a partnership, building and it all starts with a discussion. And then after we kind of figure out what works for BLM and what works for the partner, that's when we determine whatever funding mechanism we're going to go through. Like I mentioned, an intergovernmental agreement, or a GNA, or a financial assistance agreement. And that'll really dictate how we can provide assistance in the end. So as I mentioned, financial assistance agreements, those are competitive, so BLM can't provide any unfair advantage directly to one recipient over another. But if we're doing agency to agency or like state government, that's when BLM can be really involved and we can really craft ideas together the whole time. And so right now I have 9 different partners and manage probably, I think, 12 or 13 different agreements to accomplish restoration work. And so I work with Mattole Restoration Council through a financial assistance agreement, the CCC crew through an assistance agreement, Cal Poly Humboldt as well through another agreement, and Friends of the Dunes and Trinidad Coastal Land Trust that are nonprofits through financial assistance agreements. And then I work with 4 local tribes, and those are primarily through interagency agreements. So Bear River Band of Ronerville Rancheria is through an interagency agreement. Blue Lake Rancheria is through a financial assistance agreement because that's what worked best for us at the time. And then Caddo Tribe of Laytonville Rancheria is through an interagency agreement. And that was beneficial because our forestry department was already working with them. So we just kind of expanded on that opportunity. And we continued and renewed a new interagency agreement with the Sherry Heights Indian Community of Trinidad Rancheria for vegetation management. So my programs, they're split between botany, range, and weeds, but additionally, because we're right along the coast, a lot of what I do for BLM is coastal management. And so right now I work with 4 different organizations to accomplish that. And basically, it's coastal dune restoration and habitat management, primarily achieved through invasive species removal and some native planting. So the Cs are AmeriCorps volunteers, and they do a lot of on-the-ground implementation. Friends of the Dunes and Trinidad Coastal Land Trust are both nonprofit organizations that use community-based volunteer days to accomplish restoration, and they both provide education and outreach on our coastal dune ecosystems. And they've been wonderful partners for years. Trinidad Coastal Land Trust is new, and so we just engaged with them, and I'm very excited to start our volunteer days. And they work primarily on the California Coastal National Monument in Trinidad Head. And the Mattole Restoration Council, so they're a rural community-based nonprofit that provides a lot of amazing jobs in the environmental field, and they go beyond just our coastal management as well. And so here's just I really like this photo. It's one of the captains and the Corps members pointing out the greening up of the moss at their coastal dune site. And so you can kind of see on the left here, there's more sparse vegetation and there's some open sand. That is a restored coastal dune mat vegetation community, and that supports federally listed beachleia and Menzies wallflower, as well as state-listed plants. And then on the right here, that is heavily infested with European beachgrass and ice plant mats, which displace those native communities. And this area is the endangered plant protection area of one of the sites that my field office manages for vegetation. And so here, another part that supports one of my programs are the nursery partners and seed collection. And this is a huge part of my program that I really enjoy working with partners. And so again, I work with Mattole Restoration Council, and they do grassland restoration implementation, seed collection. They have a native grass farm to amplify seed and grow out for restoration. They have planting crews and project monitoring. And so that has been who we've used traditionally for years for the King Range National Conservation Area, grassland and prairie restoration projects, and they've expanded in the last few years to do pollinator projects and supporting seed collection and just being an amazing resource. And then new as of this last year is Blue Lake Rancheria and the Caddo Tribe of Laytonville Rancheria, which I'm really excited to be cultivating those relationships. And so we're working collaboratively to increase the capacity for natural resource work within each of those tribes. like expand their nursery because they're at different levels right now, and being able to have those nurseries grown up for operational use for BLM projects, and in the future ideally for other projects that can meet community needs, because we all know there's a bottleneck for native plant materials and local seed within our regions, and so building that capacity within our community has been really great, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. And additionally, they're doing seed collection crews. So part of the collaboration here is that we work together. I want to take more of a step back to be like, all right, so what are the important seeds that you want to see? How can we meet the deliverables of BLM as a baseline? And what other things can you do that really make this partnership worthwhile? And so we do Seeds of Success collections, which is a BLM-supported seed collection program, but we also do non-SOS collections that support like more niche needs, and that way they don't go through the pathway of like having that the location information shared broadly in a national database. So we can still have data sovereignty with tribal partners, but also still meeting BLM needs. And the Cal Poly agreement is for student opportunities. And I just want to say it has been really great. The ethnobotany technician position has been one that works directly with tribal partners, and it engages with tribes and the BLM to identify the seed needs, native plants desired on the landscape, and working together to foster and strengthen those relationships, and identifying culturally important plants that BLM can include in restoration, as well as providing opportunities for has ecological technicians that work across multiple programs to support the botany and range and weeds, and they collect seed for the SOS program and also smaller collections, which we give to our nursery partners. And I want to highlight some of the great work that we do again with partners. So these are the C's removing invasive ice plant on our coastal dunes within enclosures, collecting wild seed for Seeds of Success. I think that's ethereal spear seed. Working with MRC to train them on BLM monitoring techniques for restoration projects, and then rangeland health assessment work. And so technicians through Cal Poly, we're supporting the AIM program for vegetation monitoring, as well as getting a broad, diverse array of natural resource experience within agencies. And then the last component is co-stewardship of public lands. So I mentioned working with these tribes, and it has been really amazing to identify our needs for management within ancestral homelands of these different tribal entities, and seeing the kind of partnerships that we can create together and how we're really building that trust and really enhancing what's on the landscape. And most of these are accomplished through intra-agency agreements, but some are financial assistance. And this is another restoration project where we collected all the seed and grew it out. And some happy techs on the left, planting seed, and MRC again planting in our grasslands. And that is all I have. And these are some resources for the mechanisms. So it looks like I went a tiny bit over, and we maybe have, no? Oh, we're good? Oh, great, okay, we're good. So that's open for any questions people might have. It's pretty dense, and but there's a lot of different ways that we accomplish the work, and I just want to highlight again that BLM does this through our partners. So, what do I do? I don't know what you're saying.
It's not on. There it is.
Okay,
I'm Paul, and I don't have a dense question, but just on the utilization of citizen science groups in some of this. Can you speak to that briefly?
Yeah, so working with Trinidad Coastal Land Trust, citizen science is a part of that program that we support as well. And we use that to support the Seabird Protection Network, which uses community volunteers to gather data about seabirds along our coastlines. And so a lot of times it's incorporated as various parts, but for mine being focused mainly in restoration and seed collection, which can be pretty technical, I don't utilize that program as much, but it is part of a lot of these agreements as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'm a retired botanist at this point, but I'm definitely looking forward to staying involved. So that might be an avenue. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hello. Hello. Oh, hi. Hi. So we employ Seeds of Success collection strategies and at the nonprofit that I work for. Do you offer those trainings outside of the BLM agency to partner groups that work with you, or are those trainings available outside of the BLM agency?
Yeah, we can arrange something like that, and all of our SOS collections, we follow that same protocol. So collecting from less than 20% of populations and identifying a certain density we have to have before doing collections. So that's definitely something we can incorporate.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm interested in getting training for more of our staff.
That'd be great.
Cool. Thank you.
I have a question on what's the policy with BLM on engaging partnerships for the areas of critical environmental concern? And some places where I've been involved in nomination of those sites and others, they've really seemed to be forgotten. And I just wondered how does BLM keep up to date on that? And I think partnerships would help to keep those ACECs alive.
That's a great question. And so actually with Friends of the Dunes, they do a lot of their implementation on the Malel Dunes ACEC. And so it's really, again, kind of goes back to engaging partners, like what our needs are. If maybe there's an area like an ACEC that needs attention and we have funding for it, specifically, maybe there's rare plants or there's cultural resources or other things of a sensitive nature that we want to protect. And there's someone within the community, a nonprofit, a school or something that would be interested in taking that on. That's kind of how that starts to form.
I wonder if the BLM in its planning could be more proactive and actually realize groups that may be interested in ACECs and make contact with them ahead of time, even for the nomination process of those, but certainly for the long-term duration, because it's really easy for those things to just disappear, it seems like, over time.
Yeah, and I agree. I think one of the big challenges is because a lot of BLM manages a large land base, and like you saw our map earlier, we have a lot of scattered tracts. It can be challenging to cover every corner, and so really having ties within the community and like having those conversations is a great way to get it started. And I'm very fortunate to live in Arcata and Humboldt County, where there's a lot of environmental activism. There's a lot of people in the community who do respond to public comment when we put out potential projects or actions, or like we just did our 30-year resource management plan and got a lot of valuable feedback, including on ACECs within the community.
There was an online question. It's the local chapter in Sacramento works with the BLM on Pine Hill, and they were curious if you work with the local CNPS chapter where you are.
You know, I am part of a Northern California CNPS, like Native Seed Strategy Working Group. And so that has been really great, getting tied in with growers and botanists and people within CNPS. I support CNPS work for BLM statewide permits for rare plant surveys and vegetation, but I don't have a direct assistance agreement or any kind of agreement with them at this time, but I do work tangentially with them and support their activities in NorCal.
Hi. I'm a tribal descendant from Washington, and I just want people to think about something. We've had a big shift since the Biden administration did the executive order to include TEK and TRM on federal lands and federal projects. And the word I want you to think about is tribe, because there's not only federally recognized or non-recognized tribes, but California has more Indian people like myself who are not of California tribes, a lot of people from around the country. So I really encourage you to think about intertribal as a word, or indigenous traditional knowledge from that land. But there isn't just a tribe, especially in California, and even non-federally recognized tribes a lot of times have a lot of Indian people from many parts of the United States who want to have their own reciprocal relationship, tending the land and tending their own spirits of that land in their spirit. So just a little thing to think about.
So this is sort of a couple of related questions. So for an organization in your area that was interested in getting financial assistance, what is the probability of success if they apply, and what does a typical grant size look like?
That's a very good question. So it really just depends on what the project goals are, and what kind of budget you can construct, and what BLM funding is available that year. And so for what I've ranged in for my agreements, I work with, they get $12,000 a year, and they're a nonprofit to implement volunteer days, versus $100,000 to $150,000 a year to do restoration projects. So it's really, I think the key piece is coordinating with the BLM botanist or ecologist or wildlife biologist to identify and have those conversations ahead, be like, this is what we want to do, this aligns with BLM goals, this is what we need, what can you do? And so it really starts with those conversations, and then I want to emphasize it's a relationship, it's a partnership, it's not a contract, and so there is a lot of flexibility built in, and you can both have a say in how you build that partnership. Okay, thank you so much, I appreciate it.